till I had left Pakistan, that is on the 8th, there had been no new communication from the Soviet government. I do not know whether one has been received subsequently and whether it concerns the Afghan situation. Say that we have been continuously in touch with Secretary General Waldheim, and after these procedural blocks were recurred, then it was still our view that these unresolved procedural issues should not be an impediment to the appointment of a special representative by the Secretary General, and that his special representative could, by visiting capitals, help to iron out the differences on these 2 points.
Over there, in the back.
The speeches have been eloquent. The rhetoric has been of a high order. We await the results, and then in the light of the final text of the declaration, I should be able to give my assessment, but not before.
But if it avoids the mentioning of the withdrawal of the Soviet troops, would it satisfy you?
No. Well, I mean, there has to be a reference to the withdrawal of foreign troops.
Not
in the back over there.
Well, I mean, you know our position. I have made the statement of the Pakistani position in my statement to the non-aligned conference. But here, there are over 90 countries represented. And if they, in their wisdom, give us a formulation which, in essence, meets our point of view, we would not say that whether change it and put this or that. We would look at the declaration as a whole. We have to remember that we are here trying to obtain the agreement of 90 countries, and some compromises do result. But the basic irreducible minimum is call for the withdrawal of foreign troops from Afghanistan.
So, Mrs. Brindernath,
because this is the position of the Islamic countries who consider themselves directly affected by the situation. Pakistan has to take into account must cease. We must promote a world order where the weak do not fear the strong, where human dignity and well-being are the primary concern of governments, where the resources of the world are shared for the progress and prosperity of all. We have to demonstrate that our high-sounding ideals and goals do not remain buried in declarations and communiques. The government and people of Pakistan are committed to seeking a principled solution of all the problems confronting the non-aligned movement. Afghanistan and Cambodia have preoccupied this conference as they are alarming examples of the use of military force against non-aligned countries that can become a dangerous precedent. Unless the international community moves with determination in opposing them, the small and medium-sized nations of our planet would have no security. We still have the monumental injustice in Palestine to redress, and to complete the epic task of decolonization, most notably in Namibia. And we have a host of other tensions and conflicts to settle through statesmanship, the most tragic of them being close to this region between the two non-aligned and Islamic countries of Iran and Iraq. My country has been actively engaged in assisting the international community on many of these issues and problems. Now I shall take your questions. Thank you. Of foreign forces from Afghanistan, but we know as a matter of fact and reality that these troops have not been withdrawn in spite of similar demands made by the United Nations General Assembly and other international fora. We will be prepared to enter into a dialogue for a political solution on the terms already indicated by me in my address to the Non-Aligned Conference, which would bring about a withdrawal of the foreign forces from Afghanistan. There has been some setback. When I made the statement, I expressed some optimism about the conditions that should enable the Secretary General to designate a special representative to organize a dialogue. And the reason I made that statement was because we believed that the procedural issues had been settled. But subsequently, about a week or 10 days later, we found that out of the 4 points on which we believed that an agreement had been reached were still not conceded. 2 out of the 4 points. So in that sense, there has been a setback.
Would you like to mention what were the 4 and what were the 2?
The points were the following: that the Secretary General should appoint a special representative. We thought that there was agreement on that. Secondly, that the dialogue will take place under the aegis and in the presence of the Secretary General of the United Nations or in the presence of his special representative. There has been a setback on this point because we have been told that the role of the Secretary General in this dialogue will not be an active one, that he will be an onlooker, and this we consider to be not in keeping with the role of the Secretary General and his competence under the Charter of the United Nations. I've mentioned 2 points. Third point was that the dialogue will be between Iran and Pakistan and the representatives of the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan. That is, to enable Pakistan and Iran to remain faithful to the resolutions of the Islamic Conference on the question of not recognizing the Kabul regime. There has been an understanding on this that the dialogue will be with the representatives of the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan. However, we have been told that the nature of the dialogue, it will be a bilateral dialogue and not a trilateral one. So on this there is no agreement. I made that clear. We made this clear even before I came here. It is not possible to hold a meeting with Mr. Shah Mohammad Dost for the reason that the procedural issues have not been resolved. And it seems that there is some impression in some circles that the reason for Pakistan not being agreeable to meeting with Mr. Shah Mohammad Dost is because the venue will be New Delhi. I would like to make it clear to you that on the present basis, when there is no full agreement in regard to the procedural matters, there is no prospect of a meeting either at Delhi or at any other venue. This must be clearly understood.
Mr. Agha Shahi,
The role of the UN Secretary General, of course, the Secretary General has his own position in this regard. Not so. We said we would be flexible about procedures, and I will tell you how. After the November 20 resolution was adopted by the General Assembly, I met the Secretary General and requested him to implement this resolution, and the first step would be for him to designate a special representative. Other countries made the same request. And when it was found by the Secretary General that he did not have the agreement of the Soviet Union to this step being taken by him, it was the view of the Secretary General that he should first visit various capitals himself before he proceeded to designate a special representative. I believe that a number of countries objected to a visit by the Secretary General, but as far as Pakistan was concerned, we said that we would have no objection whether the Secretary General appointed his special representative before undertaking a visit to the capitals or after his visit. So in that way we were more flexible, and I think that explains it, and we proceeded on the assumption that all the points, the impediments to the procedure of a procedural nature had been overcome, but as I said, 2 points still constitute obstacles to the organization of a dialogue. The nature of a regime in any country is its internal affair, and if you begin to go into the nature of these regimes and to what extent they are based on popular support, I'm afraid that you will have very few members left in the United Nations or in the non-aligned movement. Besides, I think these allegations are false and malicious, because you will see that in the General Assembly, the resolution which was evolved by Pakistan after consultations with the Islamic group of nations and in consultations with non-aligned nations, that resolution received 110 votes. And at the Islamic Summit Conference, the resolution which endorsed, the summit resolution which endorsed the General Assembly resolution of November 20 and pledged the support of Islamic states to the Secretary General in his efforts to find a political solution, was adopted unanimously with only 2 reservations. So therefore that is not a question at issue.
Mr. Sareen.
I think as for Afghanistan, it is not for me to say. I think we have the statements of Mr. Shah Mohammad Dost, and they are, you can draw your conclusions from that statement. And also Iran has taken the position that the representatives of the people of Afghanistan should participate in these negotiations. Disposal of any of the volunteers or observers and will take them wherever they want, and they can indicate which place they wish to go without any notice. And then if we find a government of a country must be able to maintain itself in that country by its own strength. But if it is to be propped up by foreign bayonets, then a crisis develops. Surely I do not think that anyone could maintain that foreign forces should come in to maintain a government in a country against which the people rise in revolt.
One question I